Hey, thank you for coming tonight. This is the first of several town hall meetings that we're going to have. As you can look around, we've got a full house here. So if you like your husbands, wives, if you can sit on their laps. Otherwise, we'll have some standing room only. What do they call it? Kumquat on the side if you want. Take a seat on the side. Make yourself at home. This is your house too. So we appreciate you coming tonight. I'm Mike Goodman, okay? I'm one of you guys. I've lived in the Santan Valley area. I moved here in 1980 and left for 7 years later. I left, came back in 2009. And so I've been here for a while. Like many of you, pretty much got frustrated with our traffic issues and other things, our infrastructure, 6 years ago. And that's when I decided to get into it and be a part of helping try to solve some of the problems and solutions as we're going forward. For tonight, we've got a little bit of a different format. I know many of you want to get the results of what the survey is going to be all about, but we're also going to have some interaction from you. We're going to do some breakouts, and I'm going to right here by my side is Cynthia. Cynthia you've been in this area since 1982, correct? She was the very first town manager for Queen Creek. A long time ago. She's had years of government. She now works for ASU. She'll introduce you to some of her students that are here tonight to help us in our breakout sessions. And so I'll introduce her here in a second. I need to change my bio a little bit. We just had another grandchild, so we're at 30 now. So, yeah, tell me about it. Try having 12 kids. And they're all married, but one. That'll tell you what the challenges are. You know, kind of for some relativity, I wanted to read you something. A few weeks ago, or 3 months ago, my brother called all of our family together, and he's the oldest living. My parents are dead, and we've got a sister that's passed on. And he gathers because we've got a place up in northern Arizona that we needed to discuss, and what are we going to do? What's our plans moving forward? Well, he read this to us before we started to get into this heated discussion. So I'd like to share this tonight. Not that we're going to be heated, right, guys? Okay, good. All right. Okay. There was this group of older adults like me that felt like they needed to hone in on some of their skills and learn more about the computer world. So they took a computer class in college. And about 3 or 4 weeks into the class, the teacher thought, you know what, I'll have a little fun with this. So he split the group up into male and female, is how he split them up. And he gave them the challenge to determine what gender the computer is. Okay? Well, as you know, the men, they deliberated, and this is what they came up with. 4 things. And this is the reason why they thought computers should be referred to in the feminine gender. Number 1, it's because no one but their creator can understand their internal logic. Number 2, when computers communicate with each other, they speak in code language that only they and their experts understand. Number 3, it's because every time a mistake is made, they store it on their internal drive to bring back at a later date. Right, guys? Number 4, when you commit to one, you spend the rest of your life in your paycheck on accessorizing it. Okay, now, I hear the guys laughing. The women get the last laugh. So here's what the women came up with. Number 1, The reason why we think computers should be referred to in the male gender is because in order to get their attention, you have to turn them on. Number two, they have a lot of data, but they can't think for themselves. Number three, they're supposed to solve the problem, but half the time they are the problem. Sound familiar? And the fourth and final reason, when you commit to one, you realize that if you just waited a little bit longer, you'd have been able to upgrade to the better model. So, guys, we're going to have fun tonight. We are. We're going to have fun. We're going to present these results of many of you participated in. We're going to talk about them. We have a moderator here tonight. Cynthia is going to be the one that's going to actually moderate this meeting, and we'll have some breakout sessions. I'm going to let her talk more about it. She has a tremendous amount of background with her knowledge and experience in government, and we're fortunate for Cynthia to live right here amongst us. She lives in the Santan Heights area, and so don't egg her house. She can come to my house and egg mine, but not hers. She didn't do anything wrong. So with that, Cynthia, thank you. Appreciate you being here.
So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing tonight. That's what we're doing tonight. So you can see that we're going to do the welcome and introductions. We're in the middle of that part. We're going to go over the survey results. I think you know that there was a survey done last winter. So we're going to go over what we heard back from the people who answered that survey. We're going to talk about the key takeaways from that survey, and then we're going to go into breakout sessions at the back of the room so that you'll have an opportunity to hear more about 3 topic areas and also give your feedback, okay? So moving right along, let me show you where you are in Pinal County. If you haven't seen this map, if you look there in the middle where there's District 2, the smallest district, that's this district. Now the reason it's smallest is every 10 years after the census, they redesign these so each district has about the same number of people. So while you're the smallest, you have the same number of people or more as the other districts here in the 5 districts that are here in Pinal County. So this is me, and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. As Supervisor Goodman said, I moved here when I bought my first house back in 1982. Okay? So this area in those days, it was all farmland, potato fields, cotton fields, and more horses than people. But it was 45 minutes to the nearest grocery store. It was an hour to the nearest hardware store, which was not a happy thing at the end of the day on Saturday when you were trying to fix your plumbing. And it's been a long time since I've been here, and I've seen a lot of changes. I want you to know that I'm a completely neutral party in this, okay? I've been out here for a very long time, but I have no horses in this race. I have spent my career, more than 30 years, working with local government, helping communities figure out what they want to do and the best way to do that. So I'm not here with any agenda tonight. I am here, however, tonight with 4 ASU graduate students. At the back of the room, raise your hands, and they're here, they're over by the door, and they're here to help. And their job tonight is to collect information from all of you. So if for any reason you needed to leave early, if you're in one of the breakout groups and want to make sure that your questions are asked, if they want to make sure that your questions are being asked or that you can make comments, they're the ones who will collect all that information, okay? So look for those ASU graduate students, and they're here to help. And I also want to thank Supervisor Goodman and Supervisor Goodman's staff and the Pinal County staff who are here tonight. Okay, they're in the back of the room too, so they can all wave. They're all standing up at the back of the room. These are the folks who spend every day working for Pinal County trying to fix problems and make things a little better for everybody who lives in Pinal County. So they are day-to-day heroes trying to do the best they can to make life better for the residents. So this is me, and if I were you and I would be looking at that, I would think, wow, she is really old. Because indeed, I've worked for more than 30 years in local government as a city manager, a county manager, and now I teach at ASU, and I teach about local government management and how to do community governance at ASU. I also want to point out that it looks like I have had a lot of jobs, like maybe I couldn't keep a job, but that's not true. I had a lot of jobs, but they were always my choice to make those changes. And yeah, I was really lucky to move here in 1982, but you know, things change. Things always change, and these days, even to stay in place, you need to have a certain amount of growth. And you are all here tonight because you are part of a long heritage of Americans moving into new communities and working together to build them in a way that they want, to make it a better home for where they want to raise their families and where they want to live. So thank you very much for coming out tonight and being part of that long tradition. I'd like to know a little bit about you. How many of you have lived here less than 5 years? Okay, good. How many of you have lived here between 5 and 10 years? Okay, how about between 10 and 20 years? Okay, how about more than 20 years? Yeah, that's a pretty flimsy little group there. Okay, so we're the old timers. Thank you very much for that. That's helpful. I grew up in Minnesota. Anybody else from the Midwest? Yeah, there's a lot of Midwesterners out here. Welcome to the desert. So I'm going to jump into the survey details now to make sure you know what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about the fact that every 2 years, Supervisor Goodman has been doing a survey to ask residents about what they think and what they hope to see and what they want. And this survey was available between October and January, and it was 7 questions, and it was distributed as broadly as possible. But you know, these days it's really hard to get people to answer surveys. You don't know who's collecting the information, you don't know if you can trust it. You know, people don't have landlines where they can call you anymore. It's a lot more complicated. So if you answered this survey, thank you very much for answering the survey. And we received about 2,000 responses. Now, one thing about this survey, we didn't ask any questions about water. And so since this survey was taken, the issue of water has come up and become really important. And some of you probably have questions about water. Because that's so important, we're doing 2 things. One is we're going to have a forum in the fall specifically on the topic of water, okay? Second thing is Pinal County staff, Supervisor Goodman's staff back there, did you bring the blue papers for the questions on water? So we're going to collect your questions about water. If you have questions or comments about water, make sure that you find someone and have an opportunity to fill out your questions and comments about water so that we can take that into account when we do the survey or we do the presentation in the fall, okay? So look for the papers to write your questions and comments about water. So oh, that's me. You don't want to see me again. Okay, so okay, here's who answered, and I know you can't read that because it's so tiny, but what I wanted to show you here is that the people who responded to this survey came from all those many different communities. But here's where most of the respondents came from. So how many of you came from the area that responded the most, Johnson Ranch? How many of you are from Johnson Ranch? Okay, that's a goodly amount. How many of you are from Circle Cross Ranch? Okay, and that's nice, you're all sitting together. Thank you. How many of you are from Santan Heights? Good, okay. You're not sitting together. Castlegate, how many of you came from Castlegate? Copper Basin? From Copper Basin? Okay, good. Cambria? Good. And the other largest responses came from Solera, Sun Farms, Morning Sun Farms, Pecan Creek North, and Pecan Creek South. And how many of you are from rural areas outside subdivisions? Okay, good. Me too. So the people who responded, and this is probably not a surprise, we do have a high number of people who are retirees, and perhaps some of the folks who are retirees actually have a little more time to pay attention to surveys and these issues. So what we found is that about 31% of the people who responded to the survey are retirees. And how many of you are full-time residents here, live here year-round? Yeah, a majority of the people who responded, 95% of the people who responded to the survey do indeed live here full-time year-round. Here's the quality of life ratings. This is what people said as far as what they think about the quality of life in this community where you live. And what you see here is that 96% say it's fair to excellent, 70% say it's good to excellent. But you see that there's some concern here. There's 14% of people who 4% who think it could use some substantial improvements. They think it's poor. When we asked about why, the reasons people like living here is it's quiet and peaceful, it's safe and secure, they like the people that they live with, that's a beautiful environment with a rural feel, and it's affordable. The top reasons they gave for poorer ratings are the traffic and roads. Is there any surprise here that traffic and roads? Okay. And that there's not enough shopping, amenities, and things to do, and that there's too much residential development. We asked about the importance of the different priorities for what you'd like to see in the county. And I don't suppose it's any surprise here to see that transportation, public safety, and more restaurants are right at the top there. Everybody said all of them are to some degree important, but those are the things that most people said they would like and that were most important. Let's talk about those three areas that were priorities. Transportation is the first. Transportation was identified as the most essential, but I wanted you to know that there's $70 million being spent on transportation in this district, in this area, in this current fiscal year, from July to July. And county staff have developed parkway concepts that would serve as main corridors from Santan Valley to get you as fast as possible over to State Route 24. And Parkway and other current projects, they're going to be in the back of the room. When this PowerPoint presentation ends, then we're going to have you break up, and one of the groups will be on transportation, and there is information back there and maps about the transportation projects that are planned. We asked about the importance of the different kinds of development. And you'll see here that the one thing people are not interested in having any more of is fast food. There is a lot of interest in having more restaurants and having more groceries and having more community services. Now, I'll point out that one of the things you need to know is that the pattern of development is that this kind of development, this kind of services, this kind of commercial development follows the rooftops. So once you have a certain number of residents, you'll start seeing more of that happening. And I think you have, right? You've been seeing more things happening the last few years. Those of you who've lived here for more than 20 years, there's been a lot of change in the past few years, hasn't there? Okay. So let's talk about that topic of economic development. The survey indicate that restaurants are the most preferred type of development. And I wanted to let you know that we have a developer who owns a large piece of property in this area who wants your feedback on what specific types of restaurants and what specific kinds of commercial development you would like to see. So tonight, if you go into the breakout group about economic development, they're there to try to collect your feedback about what you would like to see. There's also a need for more recreational development and things to do. And that a lot of people who responded to this survey provided comments at the end, and that's one of the things that was commented on a lot, that we want to see more recreational opportunities. Responses also indicated the desire for less residential development. Now, it's hard for me to know, does that mean less residential right now and more commercial, or does that mean just less residential over time? What you need to know is that the landowners have had approval for their developments for 15, 20, 30, even more than 30 years. So sometimes that land has already been approved for commercial development decades ago. And the county has a limited ability to influence what kind of development is coming, but we are exploring potential partnerships for the creation of a possible downtown Santan Valley area, so that there would be a central downtown area of some kind. And current zoning maps and updates for new projects will be back there at the economic development breakout session. So let's get to the question about governance of Santan Valley. We asked people what they would like to see in the future. And what you see is that about 46% of those responded said that they kind of like the idea of incorporation, and that 17% wish things would stay the same, 18% are interested in annexation, 8% don't know, and 10% like the idea of a special taxing district for something like fire service. Let's talk about those 4 options for a minute, just so that you have some background information. One of the breakout groups back there will be about form of government. So that's where you can go and give your opinion and ask your questions about forms of government, okay? The unincorporated is the current state that you have right now. And that means that you're not a city or a town, you're an unincorporated part of the county. And that means that the county has the responsibilities for local services, but county governments in Arizona are not designed to provide city levels of services. Actually, by law, they're not allowed to do some things that cities and towns can do. So while it's true that taxes are generally lower in a county unincorporated area, that's why services are less in a county unincorporated area, and that's why housing is less costly in a county unincorporated area. And so the second topic here is the special taxing districts. Special taxing districts require, they can perform a variety of options. So for example, there could be a fire district. Sometimes in Arizona you have a water district. Sometimes you have other kinds of special districts like for parks and recreation. So that is a different kind of way that you can do a kind of local government that's not a city or a town, it's a special district. But you have to vote on a tax then to pay for whatever services that special district is set up to do. Let's talk about annexation. This is a process where a city or town can take over and assume jurisdiction of a particular part of the unincorporated part of the county. And it has to be a set boundary, and it requires that more than half of the property owners representing more than half of the value sign a petition and agree to be annexed. But it's done at the request of the city or the town. So the city or the town would have to want to annex an area in order for it to be annexed. And cities and towns will do a lot of cost-benefit analysis to figure out whether or not it's in the city or town's best interest to annex an area. And then let's talk about incorporation, becoming a city or a town. Cities and towns under Arizona state law have additional rights and responsibilities and authorities that counties are not allowed to have. And residents sometimes pursue incorporation because cities have the legal right to elect local city council members, the mayor and the city council members, and to focus on local government issues and to implement and govern the kinds of ways and on the topics that the residents choose to want to pursue. So they could, for example, start a municipal fire department, they'd take over the roads, they could take over public safety. Local governments do provide all of those kinds of services, parks and recreation. But again, it would take a process in order to figure out what area, what geographic area would be willing to incorporate. Now, all of these questions inevitably come back to a number one issue that I'm sure you're all concerned about, which is revenue and taxes, right? Everybody's concerned about what the impact would be on taxes. So I just wanted to give you some general background about total county revenues. That's all funds. That's all the capital funds, all of the enterprise funds, all of the special funds. This is where the money comes from. 24% comes from property tax, 12% is the state shared sales tax, excise tax, 11% is the county's sales tax, which is excise tax, and 14% is grants, etc. Now this is the entire county budget. But this is the general fund budget. This is the money that goes day to day to run the services for the county. The money to run the county services is 43% from primary property taxes, 32% intergovernmental funds from the state, and 13% on county sales tax. And this is where the money goes. I think you need to see this. This is where the county's money goes. You'll notice that public infrastructure, paying for roads and transportation, public infrastructure is more than 40% of the budget. That's where more than almost half of the county's money goes for that. And then if you look at criminal justice and law enforcement, so that's the sheriff's office and the court system, that's 23%. And then general government is 19%, and then health services is 7%. So that's how the county currently spends its general fund money. This is where the money comes from. This is, by the way, you're not all going to pay all of these, okay? Because how many of you, none of you live in a city or town, right? You're all out here because you're not a city or town. So none of you are paying that 7% to a city or town. But people who live in a city or town, the county has the job of collecting all taxes. That's their job. But the county doesn't get all that money. This is where the money goes. The county gets 25%, cities and towns get 7%, the majority of it, 30%. This is how we fund our school districts in the state of Arizona, is through the property tax. And then you have Central Arizona College, you're all paying for that. But unless you're in a special district, unless you happen to live in a special district, you're not paying that special district tax. But this is how an average dollar collected by Pinal County, this is where the money goes from the taxes that are collected, okay, on your property taxes. Just to talk briefly about city revenues. A city or a town receives a substantial amount of state revenues that do not come to an unincorporated part of the county. It's usually based on population. Arizona has a shared revenue program for distribution, and that goes to the cities and towns. So as part of the state sales tax goes to cities and towns. The Highway User Revenue Fund, that's gas tax, and that money can only be spent on roads and transportation-related issues, and vehicle license tax, that also goes to cities and towns. So here's the key takeaways that we heard from the survey. People believe that 70% of residents rate living here as excellent to good. Residents are looking for improved infrastructure, like transportation and roads, and more amenities, but they also want to maintain the beautiful atmosphere and rural feel. Transportation is absolutely the top priority for community members, and 80% of residents are looking to consider some possible kind of change for governance here in Santan Valley. Now, we are going to have a second session, so if you know anybody who might be interested in this topic who didn't come tonight, please encourage them to come Thursday. It's going to be at the Combs Performing Arts Center. You're all here, you don't need to come again. But if you know somebody else who wants to come, please do encourage them to come on Thursday. And with that, I'm going to invite you to go into the breakout sessions in the back of the room and take a look at those panels, or grab one of my graduate students and give them your comments and questions and opinions, and we're going to collect all of that information, and we will be back in touch with you with what we heard tonight, okay? Thank you very much for coming.